when you're speaking. So as of now, we are recording, and we'll hand it off to Lena to do neighborhood updates. Let me find you in the list, Lena, and unmute you. Lena, I saw her. There she is. Okay, Lena, you should be free to unmute if you'd like to go through any neighborhood updates.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. It's nice to be back. So I just have to say, like, we already started various meetings again. Now it's going to be on WebEx, so you should receive as well the same like a flyer from the developer. And I'm also going to make sure that each association is going to receive the information regarding the project of the area. So you can also help me like to spread the voice in the neighborhood, please. Another update is that starting on August 10th, the city of Boston is going to restart ticketing for street cleaning. So just be advised. We're going back. And that's the updates for today. Great.
And as for everyone dialed in, if you have any questions, again, you'll need to chat them to me and I will announce them. But thank you, Lena, for those neighborhood services updates. And we'll keep it moving then. So the next section is the neighborhood updates by me, the secretary. So I'll begin that. The first thing is a couple of Greenway updates. Number one is the benches are coming back. So if you enjoyed them last year, now that we're in a phase where parks are allowed to be open, we'll be reassembling and putting out the benches. There are a set of 4 benches that go out in the Gove Street area with some like frisbees, though I don't think we're going to be putting out any of the items, just the benches, and you should enjoy them for a little break if you'd like. And the second thing is the Winthrop extension. There was an RFP process to design a greenway extension to Winthrop, and a group was selected to carry out the RFP. So that process is now underway, and that's a picture of them standing at the end of the old railway bridge at the Belle Isle Marsh, where the road goes across into Winthrop, where that new extension may go. So exciting stuff on the Greenway. Second is Councilor Edwards is hosting a coffee hour on Thursday, 10 to 2 at Plaza on Porter. So she invites everyone to join her and ask any questions. Oh, that also reminds me, we should acknowledge all of our elected officials representatives. So I know we have Lena from Neighborhood Services, and I saw Ricardo's on from Councilor Edwards' office. I think that may be it. I'm just scrolling through the list. Is there anyone I'm missing? You can chat me. Okay. I also had a question for Lena, so I'll announce that to everyone. This is from Lorraine, and it says, Lena, what are we going to do about traffic due to all the construction?
Nat, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to follow up with that. There's been a lot of questions on our East Boston Open discussion about the inability to drive around the neighborhood because there's just so much construction going on. And I think we really have to address that. So I don't know if Lena's the right person, but perhaps she can point us in the right direction.
Yes, so I know there's going a couple of construction regarding like Boston Water and Sewer, and we're getting other from like Public Works is trying to help us, but I can follow up with them. Like you're talking about like the whole, like East Boston, or you talking like specific areas, so I can just follow with the Public Works and see.
Specific areas. If you go to the East Boston Open discussion, Porter Street, Orleans Street, Frankfurt Street, our neighborhood going into the Jeffries Point neighborhood too. Lack of parking because so many construction sites have taken over the streets. I'm finished.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you can continue to chat me those questions and I'll announce them.
Oh, can I chime in? Can you hear me? All right. So for instance, on the parking area, it's the corner of, like, say, for instance, Maverick and Frankfurt, where all that construction is going on. Maverick has been thinned out where if you're gonna try to make a turn onto or from the end of Frankfurt Street, it's completely dangerous because of the construction going on at the Maverick Mart that used to be Maverick Mart, and the 202 Maverick Street in Frankfurt. So that's become a very dangerous intersection. And then the construction all the way at the back of Maverick Street. So it's kind of like getting densely populated with the construction in the vehicles and stuff like that. So that's like one instance in our area right now. It's very.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okie doke. Thanks for the questions, folks. So to continue, first of all, I missed Glorabel Rivas, who's here representing Representative Madaro's office. So thanks to all those folks who have joined. And I had a question from Karen Sullivan about the Greenway. Is it okay for me to place books in the benches on the Greenway? We're going to discuss that on Thursday at the Greenway Council meeting, and we'll get back to you, Karen. So thanks for that. As Lena mentioned, I'll get back to my updates now. So as Lena mentioned, street sweeping resumes on August 10th. So keep that in mind when you're parking. Another announcement, there's a project underway called Vision Chelsea Creek, and they're having their first community workshop on Wednesday, July 29th at 5:30. So if you want to join, you can find them on Facebook or go to visionchelseacreek.eventbrite.com and check them out. That is for the project, the empty rail bed that stretches from the storage cube smart thing all the way down to kind of a long 1A down most of the way, and they're going to have a community process for what to do with that space. Another update is, this is Eastie Counts. This is organized by Representative Madaro's office, and it's voting and census resources for East Boston residents. There are a couple of important dates to keep in mind with regards to that. August 12th is the last day for voter registration. You can see that bit.ly link to have a voter registration form mailed to your home in any language. September 1st is the last day to mail in ballots, and October 31st is the last day for the 2020 census. So you can get in touch with Representative Madaro's office if you have any questions about that. They really want to encourage everyone to register to vote and fill out the census. And they're also working on both the hotline and in-person assistance in coordination with the city of Boston to make sure that everyone has access to all the resources they need. Back to this for 1 second, Chelsea Creek, there's also a event in Spanish on Thursday if you know anyone who would need a Spanish event. So keep that in mind. And that wraps up the neighborhood updates. I don't have any questions on chat, which means we can hand it over to Jeff to talk about 303 Maverick. So give me 1 second, Jeff, to
Sure. Can you hear me okay, Nat?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Perfect. Well, thank you to the board, and thanks for having us and for putting the platform forward remotely. Appreciate that. It helps us move projects forward and keep the city's process going. Again, Jeff Drago with Drago and Toscano. Tonight we're representing City Realty in a project that has come before the Gove Street Association back in February, right before the pandemic had hit. And so we've, in that period of time, and you can see the rendering on the right-hand side, which we didn't have such a nice picture the last time we were here. We've made a number of adjustments, cutting back some square footage, pullbacks in the rear of the property, the mansard roof design, which you can see, and really heightening our renderings and working with our abutters who are supportive of the project, which we've worked on over time. But again, this is just a rendering of the proposed building. We're proposing to go from a 3-family to a 4-unit building, some additional living space in the basement, and with that top floor, that's a 4th-story addition. And I know tonight I'm representing City Realty. I think Jimmy Caruso is on the phone or on standby on the Zoom. And Adam Glassman is the architect on the project as well. Next slide, please. Again, and so that's our team. We just went over that. So next slide, please. And so again, just a project description. We're seeking to change the occupancy from an existing 3-family dwelling building to a 4-family. And that'll include adding a 3-story rear addition, that 4th-story mansard addition on top, and to extend living space into the basement. That's not a basement apartment, just to give the first floor a little bit of additional space. And this will also be a complete gut renovation of the building, bringing it all up to the current building code, to sprinkler the whole building. And what this additional unit really does in this small addition is to give us a little bit more income to pay for a lot of these renovations, because it is extensive, both interior and exterior. As is shown, the property was purchased as a legal 3-family, and at the time it had an illegal basement unit that we are now not keeping as a separate apartment. It would just, our first floor would extend into the basement, and it would have a utility area, common utility area separate for all of the units to use storage and just their own utilities. The lot size is 2,725 square feet. And this particular zoning district is a 3F 2000, so we're slightly over what the code calls for. Next slide, please. And so this is just the BPDA map. So you can see us along Maverick, and then our abutting neighbors on Lamson, who we've been working with, just on those pullbacks. You can see we're the last house for those 2 houses on Lamson Street. Next slide. And so this is just an aerial view. So you can see the buildings to the left of us and to the right. We do have a good amount of rear yard space, which we're going to continue to keep even with the 10-foot addition. Next slide. And so this is looking down Maverick Street. So you can just see the mix of buildings. Across the street from us diagonally is the 320 Maverick project that was 5 stories with pullback. So we're definitely below that. Next slide, please. And this is just, again, looking at the building and then some of the 3-story buildings as they're carried on, and some of the rear yards are around the size of ours that have small additions. Next slide. And so this is just our zoning analysis. Obviously, this project, if it was to move forward, we would complete community process tonight, but we would also be required to get zoning relief from the Zoning Board of Appeal. We do not have a date as of yet, but just so you can see the red highlighted areas of some of the variances we would be applying for. Going from a 3-family building to a 4-family would require a variance. We meet the minimum lot size. We are slightly under for additional lot area per dwelling unit. We meet the minimum lot width and frontage. We're at 27 feet, 0.25 inches. Our FAR is 2.18 we're proposing. We're about 1.24 with the existing building. In height, we're at 46 feet, 2 inches, but we do have a series of pullbacks in the rear. And so on floors, on the 3rd and 4th floor, we have a 6-foot rear pullback. I'm sorry. On the 3rd floor, we have a 6-foot rear pullback. And on our 4th floor, we have a 10-foot setback in the rear. And we worked with our abutting neighbors on Lamson to get that because they were concerned about shadowing. And by pulling that in, there was no extensive shadowing in their rear yards. they were happy with that. We do meet the minimum open space, so we're over the 1,200 required. We're at 1,343. We meet the pre-existing. We're not changing the front yard of the building. Minimum side yard is a pre-existing violation, but we're not building out on the sides at all, so that's pre-existing. We're not tearing down the building at all either. The minimum setback required is 30. We have maintained a 30-foot, 3-inch setback in the rear, so giving our neighbors in the back plenty of open space. Now, we're not tearing down the building, so we're not able to create any new parking, so there is a parking variance that's required. Since it's an existing 3-family, would be grandfathered in, but the existing new unit would require 1 space, and we're not able to provide that. Next, but we are close to the T, we're right there. Project timeline and modification. So this just gives you an idea of how long we've been working on the project. We had our first abutters meeting back in December 17th, 2019. We appeared before Gove Street. Our first appearance was in February 24th, 2020. We've had numerous abutter meetings with our direct abutters one-on-one to kind of get to where we are with the design and the pullbacks throughout 2020. And then obviously tonight we're here for our final Gove Street meeting. Project modifications over that time period. The 3rd floor addition has been reduced by 6 feet. So now it's an open air deck in the rear, and we're going to show you some when we get into the back renderings. We'll show you that. Reduction was done to limit shadows along Lamson, so that's something we worked with our abutters along with these pullbacks, as I had talked about. Our FAR was reduced from 2.23 down to 2.18 by taking off those rear setbacks, by adding to those rear setbacks, and then we eliminated any windows in the rear additions, so for privacy in the back to our abutters. Next slide, please. And so these are just 2 renderings. So one is front looking at the building. As you can see, sort of the mansard look, it's pulled back on the front and rear. That's a side view of the building, and you can kind of see through the porches on the front of the adjacent building. We have a back deck where that pullback on the addition came in. Next slide, please. And so that's just looking at another front view on the left hand picture. And then on the right is the back of the building. So you can see on those floors, you can see how we pulled back on those top levels. So now we have a deck back there. That's eliminated from the addition. And then we have just the top roof level. Next slide, please. This is just our site plan. And it just shows you sort of where it's labeled. So 1st and 2nd story rear addition, and then it's pulled back 3rd story addition, and then 4th story. And this is also our landscape plan. So you can see by having that large setback in the back of the property, we're able to put a whole landscape plan with trees, buffering, fencing, sort of a courtyard back there, pavers, all of that isn't existing now. And so now we get into our floor plans. So proposed lower and level of 1st floor. So as I had mentioned, we're proposing to extend living space into the basement. So unit 1 would be a 2,042 square foot unit on the lower level. So I say garden because it is 60% above grade. You can walk out the back roughly, but lower level has a 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath. And the upper level of that unit has 1 bedroom, 1 bath. So total, that would be a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath unit, has a small office area, living area, and kitchen. And then in the bottom floor, in the upper level is also just a mechanical room down in the bottom, separate from the, next slide, please. And so our 2nd and 3rd floors, our unit 2 is on the 2nd floor. That's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit. Again, that unit is 1,190 square feet proposed with the addition. And then as you go up to the 3rd floor, It's 1,016 square foot, 3-bed, 2-bath, and that third floor has the 6-foot rear pullback in the rear of the property. And you can see on the right-hand slide, that has now just become an open air deck. Next slide, please. And then finally, our fourth new unit, 1,075 square foot, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with a 10-foot rear pullback. And in the plans, you can see just where it says flat roof. So to the ridge, that's pulled back. So that's a recessed top floor, adding more air and light for the neighbors as well. Next slide. And so these are just our elevations. So that shows you a side view and a front view into the top of the ridge. It says 40 feet, 9.5 inches, but the true height is 46 because the sloping grade changes. So as you go back, it's higher because you got that exposed basement, which they go by. But if you were at the front of the building, obviously it's 40 feet, 9.5 inches. So it just goes to show you the grading change. And you can see in the back how the building steps in, and we did that deliberately to add more light near. So as you're on the third floor, you have that step back with the porch in the rear. As you go up to the top floor, you step back even further. Next slide, please. And so this is just our rear and left elevation. So that gives you a back view of the deck. So that's the only floor that has the rear patio. And then that shows you the side view again with those step backs on the top 2 floors. Next slide. And this just shows you sort of where we were before. So prior to these cutbacks, the previous proposed elevation on the left-hand diagram shows you, and then on the right, it just shows you on the third floor where we cut that in to expose it, add that rear deck, and add more light here. And the red highlighted area just highlights that. Yep, next slide, sorry. And this is just some of the goodwill and community involvement from City Realty. I don't know, Jimmy, if you're on, I don't know if you're on the call at all, or if you have to mute him, Nat,
I have everybody muted, so he can ask to unmute, I think.
Let me just see if he's on. If not, no big deal. These just, I don't know if you wanted to touch upon some of these events, but I don't want to hold up the group either. That completes the presentation, so.
Okay, so there are, well, if he chimes in, let me know, or I'll
Okay.
do. And there are 2 questions. The first is from Karen Madalena. If it is a 4-family, is a variance required for 1 additional parking space?
Yep, I answered that earlier in my zoning analysis. It is. Yep.
Okay. Thanks for that. And the second question is to the group from Lorraine, which is, are there any abutters in this meeting? And if so, can they voice their support? So that's a ask to the group. I'll unmute you if you have something.
We also have 5 letters of support. I know we sent those off to the board. We can certainly share them with everyone later on. We can email them, but we were able to get 5 letters from neighboring abutters.
Okay. That looks like all the questions that came in. So why don't we give about 30 more seconds in case anyone is furiously typing, and then we can wrap it up. It'll be a long 30 seconds, but I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to type in case they're slow typers. All right, that's 30 seconds, so only the world's slowest typers will now be excluded, and I guess we can wrap it up.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Okay. 1 second. Let me get back in the hot seat. Okay. All right, so the next part of the agenda is proposed.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, Nat, just one question on voting. So are you guys actually voting on these tonight, or is it separate, or?
We will have to have a separate vote.
Okay. So normally you do ballots, is it just by online type thing, or is that?
We're still trying to work it out. We plan to copy the JPNA, but we unfortunately
Okay.
at this juncture don't have a formal plan in place that we've announced, and we still need to work through it. So we have the list of all the attendees tonight,
Yeah.
from tonight, and we can sort it out.
Okay, so you'll just let me know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can move on to the discussion phase, and Lorraine cut me off at any point. There's one proposed topic for the discussion, which is the conceptual project for the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center lots that the board wanted to have a discussion about, just to hear how the neighbors feel. And we can also take any other topics. So the ground rules are going to be that everyone's muted, and you just need to ask to unmute, and I will unmute you, and you can ask questions or share thoughts as you see fit. My plan for this part of the discussion is just to give a brief overview of the concept, and then hand it off to anyone who wants to say anything. And keep in mind that this is just a community meeting to discuss it, with no official capacity, and nothing official from the Gove Street Board or from the Davis companies or anything related. So without further ado, what everyone is interested to talk about is the conceptual Bremen Orleans project, the location of which is the 4 East Boston Neighborhood Health Center parking lots, the status of which is pre-filing. So again, it's a concept that the proponent, the Davis companies, in partnership with East Boston Neighborhood Health Center, has announced, but not proposed in any formal capacity. Their concept includes roughly 400 residential units in 7 stories, massed, as you can see in the graphic in the lower right. Thought it would be worth saying the potential next steps for neighbors is to organize as neighbors. There's a mailing list you can join at yourneighborhoodmatterseb.com. Right now, that's going to be a one-way communication that just sends out updates as updates are available, if they file or that sort of thing. But the goal of it is to discuss alternative concepts or impacts or any useful discussion about this concept. And then the next formal step will be after they file, will be the BPDA large project review, during which there will be many periods of public comment and public meetings. And with that, we want to open the floor for discussion and thoughts, and the beginning of getting organized as neighbors about what neighbors want to see in their neighborhood. So I think you just need to ask me to unmute, and I can unmute you. Currently, everyone is muted. Oh, I missed something in the chat. 1 second. Let's see. Okay. For Mark, you have a question, you can go ahead. Just chat it to me and I can announce it. All right, well, people form their thoughts. And I can also say that about 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, about 40 people convened on the Greenway to discuss this project. It was a coordination between several groups, including several members of Gove Street, several folks from the Gumball Factory, some folks from a group called EC Neighbors United. And there was a little bit of press coverage on that. The general consensus was that people are concerned about the scale and size of these projects and want to know more about how to get involved. We have a question from Mark Bonin asking for more details. How many buildings? So I'm not a representative of the Davis companies, but I have attended their webinar. So if you, I can answer that in general terms. If you look at the graphic there that says existing conditions lot plan, they propose a building on lot 3, a building on lot 4, and a building on lot 2, all of which will be, you know, large multifamily residential. And then in the lot labeled lot 1, they're not proposing, they're conceptualizing townhomes in that area. We got another question, which is, did we get from Peter and Jean Dolliver, did we get clarity on the lots and the process regarding zoning? That's open to the group if anyone knows anything about that.
No.
My understanding is that, all right, I can say with certainty that lot 2, 3, and 4 are zoned as corridor enhancement, which allows for multifamily uses with height restrictions and setback restrictions and things, and that the zoning code allows for these lots to be potentially part of a planned development agreement, a PDA, which would mean that they could propose different zoning due to the unique characteristics of the lot that don't fit the existing zoning code, which would go to a public hearing by the BPDA Zoning Commission. But none of that has been started, and that's sort of speculation, so can't answer with clarity, unfortunately. Unless people have other discussion topics, this is the main discussion topic, so don't hesitate to pipe up if there's anything. Leo would like to give us a brief summary of the presentation that the Davis companies gave in Spanish, so I'm going to ask him to unmute and we'll hear from him. So.
Hey, Nat, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we hear you.
All right. Sorry you don't get my the visual, but yeah, well, just briefly, we the Davis companies did go ahead and hold a, so I know you and perhaps a few others on this call were on the webinar they had at the beginning of the month, and they essentially the same presentation in Spanish, granted, and that was on Wednesday, maybe it was this past week, and it was largely similar, except of course this time we had already convened as a neighborhood, as you mentioned, and we tried to bring back 3 different topics that some of the folks that were there on that Saturday felt were very relevant, or like the kind of center pieces of the discussion we had, to not just listen to them, but also bring back as things we'd already discussed. Those were green space, kind of like a collaborative community working space, and affordable housing in some. But the nature of these presentations has not been necessarily a discussion like we're having now, but rather just a presentation of the vision they have. So what we've been discussing is the challenge of making sure those things don't just get discussed between us, but actually taken into account, given that we've already had those conversations. And the other thing that stood out, I think, just as it did on the English one, was, and this was the response from Hernani from the Health Center and the representative from the Davis companies, was there isn't any really thought out community benefits package right now, other than just the fact that every sale of every apartment in the land sale itself will be benefiting the health center. So they tried to focus on some of the things at the health center themselves that might be benefited. But other than that, they still don't have anything necessarily aside from the benefits the health center will receive. So those were the kind of 2 things that stood out to me, at least from the Spanish presentation.
Thanks, Leo, and folks, feel free to post questions for anyone, including Leo, in the chat. We did have a question from Rita, which is there any parking that accompanies any of the 400 units? That was not part of the concept that they've proposed, so all we know about parking currently is that the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center plans to offer like commuter incentives and that sort of thing to replace their staff parking that will be now occupied by these projects. Yeah, and then Ricardo asked to jump in, so let me unmute him 1 second. Go ahead, Ricardo.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Yes.
Cool, thank you. So in terms of parking, you know, and even in terms of unit count and height and everything, I just want to stress that this proposal is in the pre-file stage, which means nothing has been submitted to the city in terms of plans or anything like that. We are as preliminary as it gets in terms of development process when it comes to this particular proposal. So, you know, when it comes to questions like, you know, zoning, things like that, you know, the presentation that we just heard from Jeff regarding the project on Maverick Street, you know, they would have gone through the submittal process already and gotten what's called a refusal letter from the Inspectional Services Department, letting them know exactly, you know, which parts of what they're proposing are in violation of the zoning code. This proposal has not gotten to that point yet. So the way the process works is they submit their plans to the Inspectional Services Department. There's a plans examiner that will review their plans, and then either if their proposal conforms to the zoning code, we'll give them a building permit. If it does not, we'll give them a refusal letter letting them know what parts of what they're proposing do not conform with the zoning code. So that's you know, a few steps ahead of where we are currently. They're still in the process of getting feedback from the community to get a sense of what people are looking for these 4 parcels. I know that parking, I have not been able to attend any of the webinars. I know that they are proposing parking. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, if I remember correctly, and please don't quote me on this. This is a ballpark figure. For the approximately 400 units, I think they're looking at approximately 150 or so parking spaces. Obviously, again, I want to stress that this is all subject to change based on, you know, a number of variables that could come up between now and when the formal development process gets started. So I just wanted to jump in and kind of you know, give that input or those, you know, give those points. If anyone has any other you know, points, I know Peter has or Peter and Jean put concerns in the chat about the community process. Again, want to stress that the formal community process for these buildings and for this development has not yet started, and there will be a full process through the Gove Street Citizens Association, through the Article 80 process. There will be numerous public meetings in the future regarding these developments. So the webinars that they've done so far, again, are just an informal attempt to get feedback from the community, but there will be a robust community process once the formal development process starts.
Excellent. Thanks, Ricardo. So we had a question, can you give us the website where the webinar is posted? I posted to the chat a YouTube link to the English part of the webinar. And then maybe I can follow on to what Ricardo said, which is that this meeting is not part of the official public process, but it's sort of an experiment to have our own public process and just get feedback from the neighborhood without the developers present, and, you know, have anyone voice anything open that they want to say in the open. But please don't confuse it with part of any official process. The kind of discussion that many folks have heard around is that just we should come together as a community, which is why we wanted to make this part of the bring this discussion to everyone tonight. I can unmute you, Jane. We have someone who wants to speak. Jane O'Reilly, just give me a second. Okay, you should be able to unmute yourself, Jane.
Hi,
We can hear you.
it's good to see you all. if this is just a casual meeting, I just wanted, you all can, you who know me probably guess that I think this is the final straw, that too much is enough, that this is, when you look at the webinar, you will see, and do look at the webinar because it's full of extraordinary statements, and there are many, many questions to be answered, like who is profiting? Is the profit fair and even? Is this the appropriate thing to do in the middle of the neighborhood? Will it be the death of the neighborhood? You have to see the drawings, those of you who haven't, to have any idea of the egregiousness of the first suggestion. So I'm actually not really, and also, in case you don't know, my apartment looks over all these parking lots. So of course it is in my self-interest to not have it done, but I feel that the 13 years I've lived here and have gone to these meetings and have worked on the things that have happened in this neighborhood, many of which are due to this group that are good, were a wasted time if this happens. So thank you very much. Now you know how I feel about it. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jane. Next, Peter Dolliver wanted to speak up.
Yeah, thanks, Nat. Just wanted to mention that, and in response to what Ricardo had to say, I think it's important to recognize that the movements from Davis and from the health center are getting ahead of what should be a community process. And I think people are understandably getting confused by these webinars, thinking that they're participating in a community process when they are not. And I know I have had a conversation with both Lydia Edwards and with Adrian Alvaro asking that this process be slowed down, and that the health center and the Davis not be moving quite this fast through it, because it is upsetting and confusing to folks. It's not an appropriate process in my view, because we have some conceptual drawings that were done very quickly. There's no formal filing process, and yet conversations are still moving forward under the guise of getting community input, which I think is not accurate or correct and could be used against us. So I do think, to answer your question, from my opinion earlier about what do we do, I think these meetings are incredibly important. I think East Boston Neighborhood Health Center needs to understand that the immediate community is not interested in this, does not and will not support it. I think we need to let it overlaps kind of 3 neighborhood associations, I believe. So I think they'll all be involved in that community process. But I do think that we need to continue to raise our voice and to continue to rattle some cages, so that people do pay attention and that we not be railroaded forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Hopefully this is working okay for everybody. Rita, you're up next. You're ready to go.
Hi, I just had a question around the parking, sort of how many vehicles actually are supported by the lots right now, and I'm kind of wondering, like, what the, if there's been any kind of study on the impact of just removing these lots would have on parking in the neighborhood. Like, where do all those people park now? We know they're not going to be taking the key in. A lot of people, might not even be able to if they're coming from further out in the burbs. So I'm just kind of wondering how many parking spots do those lots represent, and whether there's been any kind of attempt to study the impact on the neighborhood and just removing them.
Thank you, Rita. Anyone can jump in to address that, but I can, as a neighbor, again, in no official capacity, by my account, there were 362 pre-project spaces for the neighborhood health center in the area, not on those lots specifically, but all their lots. And afterwards, there will be 79. But there has been no study that I am aware of. Here we have, Ricardo can answer though. I'm just gonna.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave myself unmuted, I think.
Yeah, I just.
So Rita, to answer your question, when the project is formally filed and goes through the Article 80 review process, part of the Article 80 process is what you're talking about, a parking and transportation impact study. So at this point in time, there has not been a study done in terms of the parking impact of losing the parking spaces currently provided by those 4 parcels. But before the project, if it gets to this point, before the project is approved by the BPDA and the Zoning Board of Appeals, that is one of the considerations that the city will look at before any approval is made.
Thanks, Ricardo. Karen, you had some comments. Do you want to chime in? Okay, well, Karen gets teed up. Lorraine, you're up next.
When I listen, excuse me, when I listen to, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, when I listened to the governor this afternoon at his briefing, he was talking about how much we need housing. And everything I've heard from the East Boston Neighborhood Health Center and the Davis Group led me to believe that whatever they want, they're going to get, because the governor is supporting them. And the East Boston Health Community Center has been very important with all the COVID-19 testing. So I feel that we really have to come together earlier, even before the Article 80, to start talking about what we want, because I feel that the Davis Company and the East Boston Health Center are on top of this, as someone mentioned previously, and we have to be on top of what we need for our neighborhood too. So I want to know, how do we come together to do that?
Excuse me, Matt.
Yep.
After she finishes, could I read what I'd like to say? My comments?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Ray,
you.
do you have anything else to add, or else we can come back to your question? I'd love to hear what people think about coming together.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
The Mary Ellen Welsh Greenway is more important now than ever, and this spring has set new usage records. The community loves the Greenway because it is a large public open space that provides important, healthy, and safe access for transportation and recreation. The increase in people using the Greenway during the pandemic has highlighted the importance of public green space for people's physical and mental health. The long linear green space provides people with a place where they can escape city life and connect with nature, which really help to improve the people's health. And the Mary Ellen Welsh Greenway is also parkland and is subject to Chapter 97. And yes, the health center does have to have, additional income, but not at the expense of the quality of life for the people in the community now. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Does anybody have additional thoughts on how to come together, or any other questions for the group?
I'd just like to say one other thing. I think definitely the community has to come together, and just remember that historically, divide and conquer concepts have been used, and we have to be a unified front and not be divided.
Thank you, Karen.
Nat, can you hear me over here?
Yep.
So first of all, I just want to say I agree with all the thoughts that now is the time to start. Ricardo's point is well taken that, you know, this is, we're in the pre-stages here, but I'm glad to see the energy and I agree with it. And I appreciate, honestly, the Gove Street Board taking the time to discuss this in a Civic Association meeting. At least for me, that's something new. So the only thing I'll add is that some of the folks after the Spanish presentation had talked about the potential for putting a list of demands or a list of requirements, community requirements for that site out in writing. And if we're going to go forward with that, we'll be sure to touch base with you all on Gove Street as well. So that's all for me. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Excuse me, I'd just like to make one other comment, if I may, is that the Spanish community, Spanish-speaking community, and we'll just say the English community have to work together again as a unified front and not be divided. Thank you.
Nat?
Yes.
Is there, and excuse me if I missed it, is there a way to be aware of all the meetings and every, you know, the discussions at the health center as a way for us to keep up with what's going on and to know what their plans are? I mean, are they including us in everything, or is that part of the organizing to make sure we're always in the room, be it physical or virtual, as this goes on, so that you know, we can cut it off at the beginning instead of having to act defensively and be more proactive?
Good question, Mark. Certainly once the Davis Companies files a letter of intent and begins the large project review, anyone can register on the BPDA site for the large project review meetings. I don't think the health center has offered any similar way to stay connected. So probably either the GCSA or yourneighborhoodmatterseb.com are the other avenues right now.
Thanks.
Oh, and then another update from Ricardo is that he wanted to make it clear again that Councilor Edwards' office is going to be very involved in this process and will be listening closely and is listening tonight about what the community wants, especially once the process is formally started. So just keep that in mind, that things that are happening right now, like this meeting, are pre-process, and it's a great way to connect with your neighbors and find out what they want. And then once the large project review officially starts, will be the right way to get in touch with the BPDA and Councilor Edwards' office during the large project review and that sort of thing. But that being said, you know, I agree with Jane's. I'm going to read Jane's point, which is, but don't wait, be proactive now. And everyone's doing that in part by being at this meeting, but that's important to me personally as a neighbor, is I just want to hear what other people have to think. So I'm really excited to see so many people.
I can't get him back. Hi, can you hear me? Can I interrupt?
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right, because I can't see, I kind of like lost you all. But my only concern right now is that from that very first webinar that they had invited us to, and we all had joined in, that they kind of like made a promise to like reach out to the Gumball, the Friends of the Greenway, the JPNA, and the Maverick Central Civic, and that they were going to discuss, you know, what they had discussed with us about, you know, what their intentions were with the plans and everything. I was just concerned, like, why they didn't reach out to the Gumball and or anyone else, like just to go forward. Although it's not, you know, it's a preliminary thing, but you know, Peter had just chimed in and said no, that they did not reach out to the Gumball, which they're like front and center, along with the rest of the neighborhood. And then just to reach out to the others, like if we're going to be united as a community and neighbors, we need to get others involved. Like there's a very big community over at 156 Porter Street. We never ever see our our neighbors and friends there. We need to get those people out. Also, the other ones at 99 Gove Street, there's another a bunch of people there that we need to get them out. So if we can just unite, like, you know, reach out to your next door neighbor, you know, I got people on my left, people on my right. I'm trying to get them all out. That's the only way we're gonna get people to come together and band together. So that's just my concern. The Gumball wasn't reached out to. 156 Porter Street, they are part of Gove Street. So that's just my concern. And they didn't reach out to them like they had almost promised to do. So, okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
And Matt?
Yep.
I would suggest that the Gove Street, if Sandra is speaking on behalf of the Gove Street and the lack of reaching out, that perhaps you should contact the Davis Company via letter to list the concerns of the Gove Street about the lack of contacting people.
Thanks, Karen. Okay, so I'm again going to set a timer for a minute, and if there's a minute of silence, we'll wrap this up, but the floor is still open for anyone to comment.
Hey, Nat, it's Jennifer.
Go ahead.
Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great. I just had a general question for the folks from the city. In light of everything that's happening with COVID and different people working from different places and potentially moving out of the city, is there any concern over all of this, what could be overdevelopment in the city if people actually decide to move out of the city because they don't have to go to work anymore in an office or anything like that? Is the city concerned about any of this? It's South Boston, and I think, oh my God, who is going to be here? I don't know if there's anyone who could speak to that. Maybe another meeting, I can bring it up.
I think it's a fine thing.
I just, you know, if people, you know, and it's very early in this whole lifestyle that we're in now, but where people are really looking to get out of the city. I mean, the Greenway is a wonderful escape, but this people and family is looking to, you know, get out of the city. If they don't have to live close to downtown to get to their office, why not have a driveway? Why not have a yard? Why not have all these things? And I look at what's happening around us and I just think, are we heading for the perfect storm? And I know the city's been complaining that we don't have enough housing, which you know, may or may not be true, but I think going forward, we really need to have some people at that higher level evaluate this to be, you know, making all these accommodations for these buildings going up. So my 2 cents.
Thanks for that. And Ricardo did say he's not aware if those conversations are currently taking place, but he's going to check in and get back to us next month.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Ricardo.
And then we did have a few people chime in the chat that we have representatives from 156 Porter and 99 Gove here tonight. So that's awesome. And looks like we have about 50 or 30 people in total, not 50, which is another good number. So thanks, everyone.
Nat?
Yep.
I just want to remind people to vote on September 1st, because I think that increasing our numbers at the polls is going to really help us in our neighborhood. People, our representatives may listen to us more carefully if we are show our numbers at the polls.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Nat and Lorraine, this is Jennifer again.
Yes.
I don't know if we'll get any more questions, but I just want to say you guys did a really great job with our first virtual meeting. Congratulations. Thank you for doing it.
Thanks, Nat. Nat's our guardian angel. Anyway, I loved the comment about we should send a letter to the Davis group, or maybe if it's okay with you, I'll just call Steve. I think his name's Steve, right?
Even, yeah.
Because I listened to both webinars. I mean, at least 3 webinars.
Really?
He had a Zoom meeting and then he had 2 webinars.
2? Oh yeah, one in Spanish.
I thought there was one before that too.
I would suggest, in addition to calling, that you still write a letter so that you have a paper trail and a record.
Understood. Understood.
Or just to clarify, even a petition was actually discussed where we get a bunch of signatures too. So just to give it a little extra weight. But the idea is that exactly, to have something in writing.
Well, let's see how receptive he is to it. I mean, Mimi's comment, I think that was, Mimi, wasn't that in the first webinar where he said he was going to reach out to everybody?
Yes, absolutely. And almost like as if it was a promise. And he named Maverick, JPNA, Greenway. They said that that's what they were going to do. And that was Paul. Yeah, the gumball. It's a gumball as it was. And if they were going to, like, what they discussed with us, and like, I mean, we have this all here in the email, and yeah, and we're like, oh, perfect, especially with the gumball, because they're like sitting right on the property, and then, but you know, I was just wondering if had they done that, and that was the beginning of June, I believe it was like June 16th or something like that. I don't remember, but it was interesting to find out. Oh wow, this is what they're going to do, and then now we're learning that any profits would be all of theirs, and you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want me to try that? Start there?
Yeah, that'd be great. Like we, you know,
Okay.
Step one. If they want, I thought we're going to be here tonight at our little gathering, but I guess not.
Just as well. Just as well.
Well, it would have been okay. Whatever. I mean, we're here.
Yeah, it was on 6/16, Mimi. You're right. I found my note.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was a Tuesday.
Excuse me, can I ask something?
Yes, Jane.
As long as we're thinking about it, what is the status of the dreadful monster building right next to Porter Street, to the bridge, that we fought 7 years ago? It's to fill out that lot. You know, it's not Davis. It was like, I don't know, 600 units or something. I keep hoping the subway means it can't be built, but does anyone know what the status of that project is?
Ooh. Yeah, that was Jeff. Too bad he's not here. Jeff, you out there?
We should include that in our concerns.
He said it was still a go. He just didn't say when. But
working on the clipper ship one.
Yep.
I am hoping that the environmental groups will be very concerned. The people I've talked to so far, we have the tunnel crush and the airport crush. There's only so much we can sustain without being poisoned. I mean, in fact, we're past that point. So it's an environmental issue.
Jane, this is Jennifer. I 100% agree with you on that. Even with this lockdown that we've had, the air quality, like just looking at my garden and how it's thriving this season, without all of the air pollution, the car pollution, it's amazing.
You know,
going back to that is dreadful. So 100%, if we can get them on board, that's great.
Too bad we can't meet together, but I like this.
Yeah, we should meet together too. I encourage everyone to use the Gove Street Facebook group. That's another open place where anyone can post if you have questions in meetings and want to talk to your neighbors and can't do it face to face. Keep that in mind too.
Anything else, Nat?
No, not for me.
Oh, okay, just one last thing. Ask Nat. Oh, here's Nat. Nat created a little card with the website and the concern in Spanish on one side and English on the other. And one of those, I don't even know what they are, those things you hold your phone up to and it connects you. And I've been passing them out in the Greenway. I would say a third of the people drop them, which is not good. But the rest say, yes, I'm very concerned what's happening. So see if you can get us some more, Nat, in your spare time.
Will do. And it's just the same content as that website, yourneighborhoodmatterseb.com. So you can always point people there. Okay, well, sounds like the conversation is more or less dried up. Lorraine, do you have any parting thoughts for everybody?
No, I'll follow up and let you all know. I'll send an email to yourneighborhoodmatterseb.com, right?
Yeah.
That's where. Okay, I'll let you know what happens.
Let Matt know that.
Okay, hi, we have one here for Nat. We have Jack here who needs to speak, please.
Go ahead, Jack.
You get his head right there at the bottom.
Is it up?
Yeah, there you are. Yeah,
Okay.
right. Just
Yeah,
talk.
Matt, what's happening is my name is showing up on all the emails sent out from you, but it never comes into me. The emails never come into me. As a matter of fact, tonight I thought this meeting was last meeting is what the girls tell me. The ladies told me. So I don't know what's happening. You can double check and see what's going on there.
Yeah, I can take a look for you, Jack. No problem.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Hope everything's okay with your wife and the baby.
Thank you. And Ricardo had one additional comment, which is, if anyone has questions for Councilor Edwards, you can email lydia.edwards@boston.gov and/or ricardo.patron@boston.gov and call them at, oh, he put it in the chat to everybody. I'm sorry. I'm just reading what you can see. But you can call them at 617-635-3200 and leave a voicemail and they'll call you back. So thank you, Ricardo.
Did you leave us? All right. Is that a conclusion?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Matt.
Thanks,
everybody.
Matt.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Great meeting.
Awesome.